Welcome to Constitutional Truth. This is Shar. I'm your host, and we're going to get into some news that happened today. Not unexpected, to be honest with you, but it would appear that federal bills H.R. 8 and H.R. 46 passed in the House today. As I said, not unexpected at all. I'm sure that many of you expected that they would pass. We, after all, do have Democrat majorities in the House and essentially in the Senate as well. But these two bills have gone on to the Senate, so we'll see what happens from there. Anyway, I'm just going to quickly show you a couple of articles that prove or whatever. The Congress.gov website has not been updated as yet to show the status on these two bills as having passed. Why it takes them so long to flick a switch and say passed, I don't know, but probably because it happened this afternoon sometime. You can go to the main page for Congress.gov, where House, and you'll see kind of over to the side on the right, you'll see where it lists that they passed. But as far as on the legislation page for the individual bills, it still doesn't show passed. So, but they have passed. So here from Spectrum News, New York 1, we have an article, House passes pair of bills to expand gun background checks. And that's basically what the two of them are. H.R. 8, the Bipartisan Background Check Act of 2021, and 1446, the Enhanced Background Checks Act of 2021. I have both of the bills pulled up. They're both rather short. We'll look at them, discuss them a little bit, and then, of course, discuss from a positive or viable steps, action that we can take going forward, what we should do from a 10th Amendment perspective as to what we can do to prevent these two ridiculous bills from having any effect on us. H.R. 8 apparently had several Republican co-sponsors or rhinos, and then 1446 closed the so-called Charleston loophole, and it says, which allows some gun sales to go through before a background check is completed. And see, this is ridiculous. The Brady gun law from back in, I believe it was 86, when this bill, the Brady bill, went through. Shortly after President Reagan, the attempted assassination on President Reagan happened, and Mr. Brady was shot and hurt and survived. I don't remember if Mr. Brady was a representative or a senator, so that's why I'm calling him Mr. Brady. But the that background check and the establishment of the federal NICS, that all came about because of that incident. And there was a 3-day wait in most cases. And that was it. And it's been, since then, there's been different things that have happened with it when states allowed for individuals to have concealed carry permits. If you had a concealed carry permit, you did not have to wait because you'd already had a full background check conducted by the FBI in the state, and things like that. So you could go in and purchase and walk out the same day and all that other kind of stuff. So the NICS is digitalized, and so there should not be any more than 3 days for if there's a delay in the automated system. Shouldn't take any more than 3 days. So anyway, so that's what we're looking at here. And then AZ Central, essentially the same, right up here talking about it. So I'm sure you've got something in your local news as well. On March 8th, the Office of the President put out a statement Gun violence is a public health crisis. Every day, gun violence, community violence, domestic violence, suicides, and mass shootings takes American lives and forever alters many more. This is not statistically supported, but what have you. Last year, we saw record levels of homicides in cities throughout our country. Violence that disproportionately impacts Black and Latino communities. Well, let's address this sentence here for a moment. Last year, that would have been 2020, yes? Well, last year we had those levels of homicides. Were they homicides related to firearms or just homicides? Let's look at the cities. Was it New York, Minneapolis, these other cities where the police departments were gutted financially, where police officers were fired, where mayors locked down everything and told people that they had to stay home, where they disproportionately prevent their citizens from being individually armed? Would it be those cities? Chicago? Let's discuss those things, because that wouldn't have anything to do with it, would it? The federal gun background check system is a proven tool to reduce gun violence and save lives. Yeah, it is. This system, called the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, or NICS, has kept millions of guns out of potentially dangerous hands. Maybe. The administration encourages the House to pass 2 bills that would help close existing loopholes in this system. Okay. H.R. 8, the Bipartisan Background Checks Act, and H.R. 1446, the Enhanced Background Checks Act. The administration looks forward to working with the Congress to strengthen the federal gun background check system and take other common sense steps to reduce gun violence. Well, if we didn't defund cops, if we didn't have cops being prevented from shutting down gangs, if we didn't have gun-free zones, if we didn't have cities where they prevented people from owning guns, it could go on forever with this. But so, of course, the Democrat House is going to follow the marching orders from their Democrat president. So let's look at H.R. 8. Okay. To require a background check for every firearm sale. So, does that mean we're going to require Ronald on the street, who doesn't have a federal firearm license because he doesn't own a federal firearm shop? Are we going to require him to do a background check? I'm talking about the guy that doesn't purchase his guns through a federal firearm licensee, who doesn't go into Cabela's or Academy or Walmart or wherever firearms are sold to purchase his guns because he's a criminal, he's a felon, and because every state has, and the federal government has laws against felons owning firearms. So, are we going to require Ronald on the corner to do a background check on Lonnie coming up and buying a gun off of him for 3 times the price, but that's the only way Lonnie can get a gun because he's also a felon? So this right here, this first sentence is an absolute, complete, and total fucking lie. Because it's not going to require a background check for every firearm sale. It's only going to require a background check for every legal firearm sale. To utilize the current background checks process. Exactly, that's all it's doing. And it's imposing upon people who already purchase their firearms, transfer their firearms through the legal process. That's it. It shall be unlawful for any person who is not a licensed importer, licensed manufacturer, or licensed dealer to transfer a firearm to any other person who is not so licensed unless a licensed importer, licensed manufacturer, or licensed dealer has first taken possession of the firearm for the purpose of complying with subsection T. Okay. Well, it's already illegal to sell guns out of your trunk in many places. But now we're going to make it harder, with the few exceptions that we'll get to here in this bill. But we're going to make it harder. Now we're going to make it to where if you want to sell your gun to someone up the road, you've got to go to a FFL to do it. That's ridiculous. And I'm just going to scroll down here, okay, because, of course, this doesn't apply to cops, private security, armed forces, as long as it's part of their official duties. A transfer that is a loan or bona fide gift between spouses, domestic partners, parents and their children, including step-parents and their stepchildren, siblings, aunts or uncles and their nieces or nephews, grandparents and their grandchildren, if the transferor has no reason to believe that the transferee will use or intends to use the firearm in a crime or is prohibited from possessing firearms under state or federal law. So we still are allowed to purchase gifts for people that are family members. But if I want to sell my gun, say on Gunbroker, which on Gunbroker I'm still required to send it to an FFL, mind you. I can't just mail it across the country to the person buying it. See, this is the ignorance of these people writing these laws. They don't understand how the firearms community operates. There is no place other than face-to-face transfers amongst people that are already listed here as family, or somebody that you know saying, hey, you know anybody that has a 9mm they want to sell? I'm looking for one. And then you vet the person. I mean, obviously, if I own a 9mm and I want to sell it and I happen to live in a state that allows private transfers of firearms, I'm still not going to be dumb enough to not try to figure out, am I selling it to a gangbanger or not? Because one thing I know for damn sure I'm going to do is I'm going to require a receipt of some sort that lists the serial number of that firearm and how much I sold it for, get a copy of that person's identification, and date it, even if it's handwritten, because I will no longer be responsible for that firearm. And then I'm going to file that receipt with my local police department and also with my local county clerk. That way, I'm no longer responsible if something should happen with that firearm once it leaves my possession. That's the way most people behave. They act like we gun owners are too damn dumb to function. But the people that are working with illegal gun buys and transfers are going to be going, oh, golly, look at this. They passed H.R. 8. We better make sure that we better go and turn in all these guns and get those gift cards from the state because, man, we're out of business now. Shit. These idiots are dumb. They don't carry their own guns. They have armed security that's paid for with our tax dollars, and they just literally think that we're stupid when they're the ones that are stupid. All right, and then, of course, a transfer to an executor, administrator, trustee, or personal representative of an estate or a trust and that kind of stuff. Okay, a temporary transfer that is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm, including harm to self, family, household members, or others, if the possession by the transferee lasts only as long as immediately necessary to prevent the imminent death or great bodily harm, including the harm of domestic violence, dating partner violence, sexual assault, stalking, and domestic abuse. Okay, Section D here is basically somebody in my family is going to hurt themselves or they are in danger of being hurt, I'm going to lend them my gun or I'm going to take their gun away because they might be, they're talking about suicide. So I'm going to, if the person is talking about suicide, I'm going to take their gun away until they get past that crisis. Then I'll give their gun back. Or I have a family member who is being stalked or harassed, what have you. I'm going to lend them a gun, and then when the crisis passes, I will get my gun back. So they're allowing that without having to go through all the rigmarole. Okay. And then whatever this section under the IRS code is, goodness, a temporary transfer under section F, I don't know. For a shooting range, if you're at a shooting range, they're allowing for you to, hey, can I try out? Yeah, sure, go ahead. You don't have to go and transfer it and then transfer it back. And then hunting also. While you're out hunting, somebody hands you their gun to shoot the deer, that kind of thing. They're not going to make you go through the FFL. I mean, that would be real fun. Hey, Charlie, an FFL guy that can go with this week and, go ahead and write the paperwork in case I got to use your 308. Good God. But at least they put it in there, All right, this is the fun part. Rules of interpretation. Nothing in this act or any amendment made by this act shall be construed to authorize the establishment directly or indirectly of a national firearms registry or interfere with the authority of a state under section 927 of Title 18 USC to enact a law on the same subject matter as this act. And then it gives the effective date. Yeah, sure, it's not going to create a registry because when you start getting more back and forth, you start getting more names. So, just going to glance at my notes real quick. All this is doing is creating more crap for people. It's overriding states' rights is what it's doing. It's interfering with the 10th Amendment because the state of Texas, as you all know I'm in, allows for the private sale of handguns between unrelated persons, non-family members, which, as is noted above here in the bill, family members are, the bona fide, a loan or a bona fide gift, okay? And I know when my father was alive, one of his favorite gifts was a firearm, and he would buy them, and he wanted them to be surprises. Imagine how difficult or how unfun it would be at Christmas time to have to drag the recipient of the gift with you to the store so that they could have to present their ID and pass the background check and all that other kind of stuff in order to receive, and then of course know what they're getting. I mean, that takes all the fun out of it for a gift, whether it's Christmas or what have you. But I mean, this is already how sales operate. It truly is. With the exception of private sales, it's already how things work. I don't know. I just don't get it. So let's look over at 1446. This is what they say is closing the Charleston loophole. Come on, mouse, operate. There we go. And for those of you who aren't aware, the Charleston loophole is in reference to that person whose name I will not say because I don't like to mention the names of people that committed crimes, who killed, I think it is 9 people who were in church. And anyway, his initials are DR. You can look him up if you like, but he killed 9 people in a church. But again, this is also relying on the existing NICS, and they're saying that they're going to strengthen it, okay, an enhanced background check.
All right. So the previous one you got, I guess you could say, is like a universal. This one is strengthening it. So they're going into 18 USC section 922T, paragraph 1, Baker. So let's go look at what that section says. This is how it normally works. All right. And again, this is the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act. I don't remember when it was done, but what normally happens is before before the gun is given to you, okay, the FFL person contacts the NICS, okay, and the system almost immediately. I mean, it really takes very little time. The let's see, 2 times I've purchased 3 guns myself. One was 2 guns at once that I ordered from an out of state. They were both purchased out of state from a place in South Carolina, Palmetto Armory. But it was a 2-for-1 kind of deal. And they came in. I went to the place where I had them shipped to, a local FFL dealer, because, like I said, they cannot just mail it directly to you. I went to the place. I filled out the paperwork on a computer. They did everything. And within 5 minutes, maybe, I think I spent more time BSing with the guy than anything else. It was done. It was approved. Okay. I mean, it literally took longer to process my credit card to pay the transfer fee than it did for the information to come through. All right. And same thing with the second time. So it would have been T1 Baker I that occurred in both instances for me. Now, previous to that, a former spouse or former boyfriend had purchased a rifle that he later transferred to me as a gift, okay? But he had gone to purchase, and for some reason, there was a hold. After 3 business days, okay, the company that we had purchased it from called and said, come pick up your rifle. We haven't heard back yet. That's the way it works. Okay. Under this change, oh, let me come back over here. All right. And that's where it ends. That's where it ends. Okay. If the system hasn't notified it, okay, then after 3 days, then you get the gun, as long as the FFL has verified the identification of the person and taken a copy of it, which they do anyway. That's it. That's how it operates right now. Well, here's where they're changing it. Okay, they're taking it all out. They're making it 10 business days instead of 3. And if it doesn't come back within 10 business days, the person trying to purchase a firearm has to submit either electronically or through on a website set up by the AG, or by first class mail, a petition for review. That, of course, the government has to come up with, which certifies that such other person, or the buyer, has no reason to believe that such other person is prohibited by federal, state, or local law from purchasing or possessing a firearm, and requests that the system respond to the contact referred to, in other words, the FFL person, within 10 business days after the date the petition was submitted, or within 10 business days of the postmark, if it's done by first class mail, and 10 business days have elapsed since the other person so submitted the petition, and the system has not notified the licensee that the receipt of a firearm by such other person would violate subsection G or N of this section, and by adding at the end of the following, the AG shall, all this other kind of stuff. make the form available, provide the petitioner and the licensee involved written notice of receipt of the petition, either electronically or by first-class mail, and respond on an expedited basis to any such petition received by the AG. If after 3 business days have elapsed since the licensee initially contacted the system about a firearm transaction, the system notifies the licensee that the receipt of a firearm by such other person would not violate. The licensee may continue to rely on the notification. It goes on, but it sets up a ridiculous hardship on people. Here's where it gets really fun. Okay, I mean, most of this is for FFL people. If you're FFL, the links for these bills will be in the description. Read it. If you're just interested, read it. I'm skipping over it because most of us are just purchasers. Within 90 days after the end of each of the 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year periods that begin with the effective date of this act, the Comptroller General of the U.S. shall prepare and submit to the Committee on the Judiciary of the House and the Committee on the Judiciary of the Senate a written report analyzing the extent to which, during their respective period, paragraphs 1 Baker 2 and 7 of Section 922T of Title 18 have prevented firearms from being transferred to prohibited persons, which report shall include, but not be limited to, the following: assessment of the overall implementation of such subsections, including a description of the challenges faced in implementing such paragraphs, and an aggregate description of firearm purchase delays and denials, and an aggregate analysis of the petitions submitted pursuant to such paragraph 1 Baker 2. Absolute insanity, absolute exercise in ridiculousness. How is this going to keep handguns out of the hands of prohibited people when we know that criminals do not shop for their guns through FFLs that require background checks through NICS? Someone please tell me. I cannot understand this. These government pukes, the media pukes, and the moms demand action pukes consistently point to the handful of morons who have gone off their rockers and used legally purchased guns, either that they themselves purchased or that they got from someone else who purchased them legally, as proof that the system has failed. No, it is proof that no system is 100% functional. Never do they ever point out the fact that no system is going to prevent prohibited people from getting their hands on something. We have a war on drugs. Drugs are all over the place, much worse than they were before the war on drugs began. We have a war on poverty. We have more homeless people now than we had before we began the war on poverty. We have a war on terrorism. Now we have domestic and foreign terrorists. When in the hell are people going to pull their heads out of their asses and start saying to themselves, you know what? Maybe government doesn't know what the fuck it's doing. This right here is definitive proof that government doesn't know what the hell it's doing and needs to stay the hell out of the lives of everyday Americans. As much as people want to make fun of Marjorie Taylor Greene and her past tweet and her past Facebook post and some of the ridiculous things that she may have said before she campaigned and even while she campaigned, the woman was dead spot on when she talked about, I think it was Waycross, Georgia, the city where it is required by law that every head of household have a weapon, a firearm, sufficient ammunition, and be trained in its use. And they have had one murder over the period of 5-10 years, I think she stated. I wonder why that is. Chicago and Houston, Texas are two cities that are comparable to each other and are regularly used in comparison to their crime levels. And when I say comparable to each other, I mean size, population size, okay, and uh, overall makeup demographically. In Houston, you don't know if the person is armed or not because it's Texas. In Chicago, you can damn well guarantee that the person is unlikely to be armed. Look at the Chicago shootings. Look at the comparison in Houston. It's a vast difference. I'm not saying that Houston doesn't have shooting crimes. It does. But the comparison is different. Vastly different. When you disarm people and tell them to rely on police officers who definitely, for the vast majority of them, intend to serve the public. They cannot serve everyone and cannot be everywhere at the same time. You're going to have a problem. People have to have the ability to defend themselves with the most effective means necessary. The Texas, I want to say she's in Dallas, but somewhere in that crazy blue area, the Texas representative who filed the bill wanting to weaken the castle doctrine and make ridiculous claims that robbers shouldn't have to face the death penalty. Lady, you need to kiss my ass. I'd say something worse, but I don't want children to be offended in case they're listening. Robbers need to think twice before they break into a house. When I hear lefties saying, well, just sit back and let them do whatever they want if they break into their house. Just let them take what they want. No. It's not a matter of let them take what they want. If someone breaks into my house and they vocalize, I'm just here to take the silver, okay, then I might consciously say to myself, okay, I'll direct you to the silver. Here's the silver. Get the fuck out. But I don't know what someone's intentions are when they break into my home. They might be here to murder me. I have no moral obligation to allow them to harm me. It's not about property, which is mine. But my body is also my property. I have no moral obligation to allow some strung out on whatever or angry or whatever person to harm me, what's mine and what I've earned and paid for. And that's what these morons aren't getting. Criminals are not going to follow these laws. They just won't. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. As I said, I will put links to all of this, other than the links to the articles. You can look up what you want on your own. But I will put links to all the rest of this in the description. I will put a link to the Texas bills that I discussed that will be serving to nullify. Please look out in your own states. If you're outside of Texas, look to your state legislatures and see what type of firearm nullification bills that they have. They won't be listed as such, but what kind of bills that they have pending that would serve to nullify federal firearms laws. If they don't have any, reach out to your representatives and your senators on the state level and say, look, we need to do what Missouri has done, what Indiana has done, what the other states that have said, we're not doing this. Have them reach out and talk to the folks here in Texas. Whomever you admire or whomever you think is doing it right, have them reach out and copy that, improve on it, make it work for your state, because exercising the 10th Amendment and nullifying these federal bills is the most effective way of making it work. If California and other states can do it for marijuana, we sure as sugar can do it for gun bills. So now I'm actually finished. Everything will be linked in the description. Please, if you find this to be helpful, like, share, subscribe to the channel, and by all means leave comments if there's anything that I've left out. Also comment that. I appreciate your time. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.